What's up guys, Derek, moreplates.com. Today we're going to be talking about what 15 pounds of muscle actually looks like when it's added to a physique. So we've seen way too many videos in this past year of guys claiming, like even at a top level, at pro athletes, top trainers claiming they're packing on 30 pounds of muscle in a couple months, 15 pounds of muscle in a couple months. We have like DeChambeau claiming he's gaining fucking heaps of muscle when it's like over half of it is fat. We have guys claiming, over a quarantine they gain 15 pounds in a month, just ridiculous stuff. So today I wanted to show an example of what 15 pounds of actual lean muscle looks like. Because a lot of guys, they look at weight on the scale and they think, oh, lean weight, even if they think, oh, my abs are still visible, I didn't get that much visibly fatter, it must be all muscle. Like, they're not. When we talk about muscle, like actual contractile tissue, we're talking about if you were a depleted bodybuilder stepping on a stage at contest condition levels of body fat, this is where you'd see the visible change between what is actually that weight comprised of. So I did a video a while back, November 22nd, 2019. It was day one to IFBB Pro Transformation Example of Freak Bodybuilding Genetics. And this was showing one of my favorite bodybuilders of all time, Antoine Vaillant. I basically followed his journey as a kid. When I was first getting inspired to get into working out, I used to watch his stuff all the time. This was like OG YouTube days before any bodybuilders were vlogging or doing anything. He was like one of the only ones doing it. And he like vlogged becoming an IFBB Pro open bodybuilder essentially. And in the progression, you can actually see him recording his weight increments as he gains muscle show to show. So it's not like some guy who ate more food during quarantine and then added creatine in and did something and like artificially inflated his weight maybe by like 15 pounds and maybe like 2 or 3 of it is actual muscle and then is, walking out with some intracellular fluid in a full stomach and claiming he gained 15 pounds of muscle. This is like actual contractile tissue show to show being fully depleted and shredded to the bone, show to show, and showing exactly like what 15 pounds of like pure muscle actually looks like slapped on a frame. So I wanted to kind of go through it with you guys because you may have not seen this video and it shows a good example of like how significant it really is. Like if a guy says he gained 15 pounds of muscle and he doesn't look like completely different to the point where you're like, what the fuck did you do? Like if you can't tell the guy gained a stupid amount of muscle, then it's probably not 15 pounds of muscle. Like some of these guys are coming out of, quarantine saying they gained, 10 pounds of muscle, 20 pounds of muscle, 30 pounds of muscle. And you can hardly even tell for some of them. Like I did a video recently on a baseball player and he came out of quarantine, said he ate chicken and rice and did 300 push-ups a day and gained 15 pounds of muscle in a month or something ridiculous like that. And it doesn't even look like he gained weight whatsoever, let alone 15 pounds of muscle. So here he is after only 1 year of lifting, just absolutely insane. He is already, comparable to guys, many years older than him. And he already has an insanely developed arm deltoid. And like just checking his quads too, just you can tell this guy's gonna be a freak. Like he's already a freak off the bat for being a teenager who just started a year prior. And the cool thing about this was Antoine actually commented down in the comment section saying what his weight was. So he says here, the footage is when I was 17, 185 pounds. He started training at 15 years old. So here he is at 185 pounds. And, for a guy who's only been training for 2 years at the time, like it's pretty insane what he looks like. So this is him at 185. And now we can see his progression all the way to 8 weeks out at a show when he was 20 years old. This is him at 234. So when he actually depletes down and gets stage ready, he's much closer to maybe, like 20 to 30 pounds heavier than his, the previous showing we were looking at him at 17 years old. This is 3 years later, but this is kind of, first of all, I'm showing what a drastic difference 20 to 30 pounds is, first of all. Obviously that's much more than 15, but I don't have an in-between here, but we're gonna take this base of 20 years old and then show what increments of 15 pounds of muscle look like stacked on top of this already pretty big bodybuilder. So here he is at 8 weeks out at 20 years old. And you can already see the massive difference. Like it's an unrecognizable physique from the previous one that you just saw of him at 17. Like he looks like he went from a guy who you just thought was, like a jack teenager who you'd be like, wow, this kid like must go to the gym, to a guy who you're like, okay, this is like a pro bodybuilder essentially, or he must be. Most like laymen would think this is a pro bodybuilder already looking at his physique here. So this again, remember, is only a few years later at 234 pounds, about 8 weeks out from the show that he was doing at the time. And he looks absolutely nuts. Has, you know, a physique we would all be super happy with. Now moving forward to a couple of years later, this is him 7 weeks out of another show. So about the same time frame where he was 234 in that posing footage. Here he is at 7 weeks out for a show a couple of years later. So he's at 250 here. So almost exactly 15 pounds heavier of like the exact same time frame of weeks out essentially. So he is 7 weeks out here, 16 pounds heavier, and you can tell how much his physique has progressed. Like it's, he's gone from being like, okay, this guy is going to be a sick bodybuilder, so this guy is a sick bodybuilder. This is kind of like where people started really taking notice of his physique, and I think he probably got maybe he was already sponsored at this time by Universal, but again, this is 7 weeks out at 250, looking absolutely insane. Now, another 15 pounds of stage weight gets added to his physique again hereafter, and this is what takes him from like doing like pretty okay at the Canadian Nationals to blowing everyone out of the water at Canadian Nationals just a couple years later. So here we are in 2012, he weighs in 8 weeks out, and you can see here he is 271 pounds at the time of the weigh-in. So this is 1 week further out. So presumably at 7 weeks out, he is pretty much 15 pounds heavier probably than he was here. Like technically it's 20 pounds, but when he steps on stage, it's about, from what I recall and what I could find here through my research, about, you know, give or take 15 pounds of stage weight. So here he is 7 weeks out, and then here he is 8 weeks out weighing in before he, this is the year he won his pro card actually. So he's 270 here, proof of that. And then a week later at 7 weeks out, here he is in his video posing. And we fast forward and here he is. So a whole nother level of mass above and beyond. Like he's gone from like aesthetic golden era physique to like aesthetic mass monster territory with that 15 pounds of muscle added. So it's like, it's that substantial of a difference, guys. Like, does this look like this is a totally, like you can see it's not just the exact same thing with a bit more fluff or anything like that. It's like a morphed fucking human to the point that you're like, every pound is clean weight, just like slapped on a body part. It's not like, you know, something that is, you could, you know, distinguish as anything but that kind of pure tissue. Like anytime I see these guys saying, oh, 15 pounds of muscle, and I'm like, I can still recognize your physique. Like it still looks like you may have gained, like you can distinguish between water weight, fat weight, and then muscle weight. Like if you have a guy gaining 15 pounds, these like pro athletes that are claiming ridiculous claims, like oftentimes it's just, you know, maybe like 4 or 5 pounds of muscle if they're lucky, and it's like 10 pounds of shit sitting in them still, like food in their stomach, water retention, and just like temporary weight from eating in a surplus or something like that, or weighing in at like a different time of the day or something like that. Like this is literally stage weight added, where a guy goes from placing well at national shows but not being a contender for like winning the overall, to literally adding 15 pounds of actual pure lean tissue and going to blow everyone out of the water in the overalls at the nationals. Like this is the difference 15 pounds of muscle actually looks like on a physique, to the point where it's like, okay, this guy this guy is like, you'd be like, what the fuck did you do? Like a year later to add 15 pounds of muscle is like an absurd accomplishment even on gear. So anybody who claims they're doing it in less than this time frame, like months, and they don't look significantly different, like there's no way you're going to pack on 15 pounds of muscle in a few months. Even if it's your first cycle ever, the likelihood you're going to pack on more than like 10 pounds of muscle in a few months is like very, very low, unless you're a fucking hyper elite responder like Antoine. So here he is, like this guy, keep in mind, he's like top 0.00001% genetics. And this is what 15 pounds of muscle looks like on him. And it takes him like over a year to do it, versus these random guys who claim, like, again, I guess they're pro athletes, but I mean, they're not training for bodybuilding and they're claiming 15-pound muscle gains, 30-pound muscle gains in a span of like 2 to 3 months or even less, sometimes even a month. It's fucking absurd and it doesn't look like actual muscle. This is what actual changes in real contractile tissue look like, going from 234 pounds at 8 weeks out, 234, looking like an aesthetic fiend, going to 7.5% body fat according to him, going to 7 weeks out at 250, so 16 pounds heavier, notably significantly bigger, definitely not just like random fucking fluff weight, and then going forward to becoming the overall blatant winner of the Canadian Nationals, blowing everyone out of the water at 270 pounds, not stage weight, but at the exact same time frame out of the show, 7 weeks out here, and just looking like an absolute behemoth, looking like an actual like high level open bodybuilder. And at this show, he basically just like stomped everyone in his class, and then he won the overall and edged everyone else out who won their classes. So this is the example of like 15-pound stage weight added to 15-pound stage weight added to 15-pound stage weight, not some guy going through quarantine and eating in a surplus and doing some push-ups and gaining 10 to 15 pounds of fluff weight and then claiming it's all muscle. Like, this is what actual stage weight looks like on a physique. Somebody gave me the idea by posting on my video to show what 15 pounds of muscle actually looks like, because oftentimes I will end up making these videos where I'm like, this guy didn't gain actual muscle. This is one of those things where an article writer is stupid and they think they just write muscle when it's actually just weight. And there's a huge misconception about what muscle actually looks like on a frame. Like, just because you have abs and then you start eating more food and you maintain like relatively similarly looking ab cuts, it doesn't mean that it was all muscle tissue. So this is what it actually looks like. It literally is like the equivalent of you mutating to the point of wondering what the fuck the guy did, and it involves like copious amounts of gear if you're like past a certain threshold of your genetic potential probably, but above and beyond that, like even going back to the pro athletes who, you know, aren't massive bodybuilders, you would notice a significant difference on their frame, because it's not like they even have a foundation like Antoine where it's like 15 pounds on a 250 guy is not going to look as substantial as 250 pounds on a guy who's like 170 and hasn't packed on very much muscle at all. Like, that guy's going to look like the change of Antoine going from like a teenager to him at like 19, 20 years old, where it's like, wow, this guy went from like a muscular looking like teenager to this guy's clearly a bodybuilder. And we're not seeing those changes in these pro athletes that are claiming these ridiculous 1 month transformations. We're just seeing them eating more food basically and getting like maybe, you know, like 70% fat, 30% muscle, maybe some water. You know, it depends. If we're talking about certain guys, some of them are gaining like quite a bit of muscle, and those are the guys who are blatantly on gear, and that's why it's pretty easy to call those guys out. But some of the ones that are questionable are just delusional about what the scale actually equates to on a physique. And some of those guys are on gear, but it's like the weight is not actual pure tissue, and they just like have no conception of what that actually looks like on their frame. So they just see the scale go up 15 pounds. Oh, I still have abs in the mirror, therefore I'm 10% body fat because I have abs, and therefore it is all muscle tissue. And guess what? Magazine interviewing me, I started eating 3 protein shakes a day and 3 fucking protein bars and chicken and broccoli and rice, and I gained 20 pounds of muscle in 2 months because I started weight training a special way like 7 times a week instead of and eating this special diet of fucking micronutrient deficient food. And it's like, it's just fucking baffling how this is still a pro athlete. I don't get how these pro athletes are so delusional about body composition metrics. Like, you would think at a high level athlete at a pro level would at least understand the difference between muscle, fat, water, and food sitting in your stomach, but it just doesn't seem to be the case. So I speculate we're going to see a lot more cases of these, ridiculous claims coming out in the future. And it seems like bodybuilders are the only ones who have a firm grasp of what muscle tissue actually looks like. Like, how many fucking sports writers, magazine articles, celebrities, they're just like, Ryan Reynolds packed on like 47 fucking pounds in 2 months. And it's like, some of them are saying like, of muscle. And that's, Ryan Reynolds is actually a bad example. There's some of them that are like, you know, Chris Hemsworth gained like 30 pounds in like 3 months for Thor or whatever. And it's like, yeah, he sauced it up, but I mean, it wasn't 30 pounds of muscle. I don't even remember the exact statistics, but you've seen them fucking off, and I talk about them all the time, and I'll probably keep talking about them because I have a feeling they're going to keep coming up. So anyways, take from that what you will. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you have like another example of like a bodybuilder or anyone who has like a blatant increment of like 10 or 15 pounds of stage weight gain, that'd be good to put up in the comment section, because a lot of people don't really understand what it really looks like in like an actual representation in person. So having those examples are good to actually exemplify to somebody like what to expect and what 15 pounds of muscle actually looks like and how intense of a difference it actually is. Because it's substantial, guys. It's not something you can expect to pack on in a couple months. Even like cranking your fucking face off, it's not gonna happen. So anyways, please like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplates.com. Follow me on Instagram at moreplates_moredates, Facebook, Snapchat, BitChute, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts if you want to listen on audio instead of burn through your data on YouTube. It's good for the car, for the gym, whatever it is that you like probably don't want to ruin your battery life and your data while you're listening. And if you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I am associated with in the video description below. My TRT clinic, my nootropic and pre-workout formulas, Gorilla Mind, Gorilla Mode. I usually do a like several minute breakdown of summarizing Gorilla Mode Nitric, Gorilla Mode Stim, and honestly the formulas speak for themselves, so I might just start saying like, look at the label on the product page and you'll compare it to your own. And I don't know if I want to break them down every single time from now on, because it gets, I feel like it gets a bit redundant, and I don't know if people want to sit through that every time. But anyways, check it out. It's in the video description below. And yeah, I encourage you to just compare it to your current pre, and you'll see pretty transparently why we are taking over the industry. So check it out. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.